YouTube and things like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, that's perfectly fine. Shall we? Jivan, are you recording or should I?
I think it's recording already.
Okay. All right. Okay. Somebody's recording.
And there is a recording.
Amazing. Okay, so I would say we just start, and whoever's joining late can just pick up, and should be fine. So first of all, dear Melissa, let me welcome you very warmly to our next EcoFashion speaker event. We're deeply honored to have you here with us. EcoFashion was actually is a part of Global Shapers. And EcoFashion was founded in order to enable more people to be more sustainable in terms of fashion, and just to make EcoFashion just in general much more appealing. Mm-hmm. About me, my name is Julius. I'm a PhD student here at the University of Cambridge in engineering, actually. With here, I mean, I'm right now in a small mountain cottage in Austria. I guess we all had to move kind of due to the pandemic. However, I'm deeply concerned with sustainability, and this is why I joined Global Shapers and the EcoFashion group in general. Now, you are a person who has already made a huge impact in terms of EcoFashion, ethical fashion with your Project Cece. I don't want to spoil too much. I'm pretty sure we will go into that in detail in just in a second. What else we will have today is a short workshop, if I got that correctly, and this will be followed by a Q&A session where just everybody can ask their questions. Just write them in the chat, or I guess we're such a like okay. I guess we can just shout them out if you want to. Should be all right. Yeah. With that being said, welcome, and could you give us a little bit more overview? What is Project Cece about? How did you get into sustainable and ethical fashion?
Of course. So how it started for me, I used to be a huge shopaholic. I really enjoyed shopping, and I remember when the first Primark came to the Netherlands, I actually took a train with my friends to go there and shop as many things as we could. But then I saw a documentary, The True Cost. It's the documentary that that inspired a lot of people to get active in sustainable fashion. And then I saw that by buying clothes, like such a simple act, I was actually exploiting people, but also like on the environment, that a lot of impact or negative impact was because of the fashion industry. So I felt super bad about it, because fashion, like, it is super nice, but it's also not something that's essential to survive. So I was like, okay, if I make these choices for fun, I have the time and the privilege to think about the impact of my choices. So what I did then is I stopped buying fashion for a year. And then I went into an H&M, and because I knew they had a conscious collection, and I was so excited because when I went into the fitting room, I saw written on the wall, like, yeah, we inspire our workers to unite in union. So I was like, oh my God, this store, it's amazing. So I bought a lot of things there, and then I went back home. I was happy. And then another news article came out talking about H&M and how the fast fashion industry, the impact it has on people and the impact it has on the environment. So then I was like, okay, I do not want to contribute to this with my choices. So I was discussing this with my sister, and she was also having kind of the same problem. And she was doing a minor programming at the time, and she was like, maybe we can just make a website that unites like all the fair fashion brands in one place, because we did find a lot of fair fashion brands when we were looking for them. But yeah, every time we went to make every time we wanted to go shopping, we didn't find them. Like, you actually have to know them before you can find them. So yeah, so she built the website, and yeah, that's how we started.
Well, that's definitely an amazing story. From going from a shopaholic. I mean, I can see in your background there's clothes hanging already. So yeah, it's quite honest, and it's quite interesting to see where you went from being a shopaholic at Primark and then switching to, let's say, a conscious brand at H&M. But how did you then end up with Project Cece, and what is Project Cece actually about?
Yeah, so what we really found hard about buying sustainable fashion was every time you wanted to buy something, for example, now new blouse, you actually had to know which sustainable brands were even selling styles or products that matches your style. and you also had to do research, like why are they sustainable? We founded Project Cece to just gather all this information and all those products in one place. So you don't have to do the research and go through all those different websites, and you can just find it in one place.
So Project Cece is basically a website which collects all from like different shops into one place where you can get all sustainable. Okay, and now what I was really curious, like in preparation to the interview, I was just wondering, because critics, there's a lot of critics who always say fashion cannot be sustainable in economic terms. In fact, only you're saying only 1% of all clothing is produced under fair working condition and sustainable. Now, how do you deal with that criticism? And would you agree that it's not really economical?
I wouldn't agree. It's not economical. I think it's a really nice way to, like, I also am really pro globalization. So what you see a lot is that people who don't want to contribute to the fast fashion industry, that they start buying secondhand only, which is a good thing environmentally, of course. But then there's a lot of people who actually depend on the jobs created by the fast fashion industry. So my biggest fear is that everyone moves away from the fast fashion industry, and those people working there, they don't have a job at all. And that's even worse than having a job that doesn't provide in their livelihoods. So what I'm really pro is that we create jobs in places that now heavily depend on the fast fashion industry, but then make them fair and ethical jobs. And I feel like we as consumers have power there as well.
Could you maybe give us a little bit more information about in which terms these working conditions are unethical? Like, what's the situation like in Bangalore or other fashion producing countries?
I think the best example here is like during COVID. What happened, what you saw happening a lot was that the big brands, they just canceled their orders because they had to close their stores in Western Europe and also the United States. So they canceled their orders, but the products were already made. So the factory owners, they already had the cost. They had to buy the materials, they had to pay their workers. But because the orders were canceled, they couldn't pay anymore. So they got really indebted. They had to fire a lot of people. And up until this day, a lot of the workers are still waiting on their wages to be paid for work they already done.
Yeah, and the wages are quite low.
Yeah, they're already quite low. So for a lot of people, they don't even have they didn't have the opportunity to create a savings account or anything.
Okay, so I mean, one way to be more sustainable in terms of fashion is to shop sustainable. But as you say, I mean, if you're a shopaholic and you just buy thousands of t-shirts, it doesn't really matter how, just from my point of view, how sustainable they are. You just, yeah, it's again a waste. Another option would be to go for secondhand stores. Would you say that secondhand shopping is a more sustainable way?
In some way it is. Like if you buy secondhand from people that are near you, then it definitely is. Like the most environmental friendly piece is the piece that's already created. But what happens is that the secondhand industry is a huge industry. So you see that, for example, lots of the secondhand shops that sell secondhand in Europe, they get their clothes from the United States. It's gathered in bulks and then shipped to Europe and then sold here. So it's not that personal aspect that we believe it is, like taking over someone's clothes. So yeah.
Okay, so you're saying there's a huge industry behind it. Okay, so now if we go back to Cece and say, okay, like this is the way to be really sustainable. Where would you you wish for more support from politics, business, and society? What would Cece right now really need to be 100% of the world's fashion market?
I think the most important thing is the knowledge part. So what you see a lot now is when a brand that's not necessarily committed to sustainability, if they do some super small thing, they get a lot of outreach and press about this small thing, and then people feel like, oh, okay, you see, the fashion industry isn't that bad, and they just continue with their old habits. Whereas the fashion industry is still this huge industry and it's still exploiting people, and there's still so many horrendous things going on. So I feel like if the press coverage on those topics would be more strict, I think that would help a lot.
So you're talking about a lot about whitewashing. Could you give us an industry example, like, because we're always talking about this construct, okay, fashion is not sustainable. Could you give us like real life examples? What is H&M, or I don't know, maybe they're super sustainable. Could you give us some examples?
So for example, H&M, they also canceled their orders, and then so they shifted the financial burden of those the orders already created to the garment factories in Southeast Asia. And then there was this whole campaign of #PayUp, where we demanded people to, or companies to actually pay for the orders that already have been created. And then H&M stepped up, but a lot of the bigger ones didn't. So up until this day, there's many brands who still are like, didn't pay up.
Okay. And now we've spoken about this whole eco-fashion on a very high level. Now, of course, impact is not always on a high level. Well, actually, it comes down to what can each and every one of us do. Now you're sitting here and talking to a lot of really enthusiastic students who really want to do something in terms of sustainability, who are maybe not able to code, or I don't know, but just really basic. What would you say? What could each and every one of us do to be more sustainable in terms of fashion?
I think the most important thing, and that was the biggest struggle for me as well, is to buy less. So yeah, like I said, the most environmental friendly thing is the thing that's already created. So my vision is that we buy less, but when we buy better. And also a struggle we hear a lot is that sustainable fashion tends to be more expensive than like normal fashion. And I feel like if you buy less, you also have like the opportunity to really invest in pieces rather than to buy more.
Well, sorry. So, no, please go ahead. Say it again.
No, I just said.
Okay, you've heard it. Okay. Now, if you say buy less, like could you give us maybe a personal example, like coming from being a shopaholic, like how much do you spend on clothes a month?
Well, what I do now is I rent my clothing a lot. So there's in Amsterdam we have a fashion library. And I buy my basics or like pieces I know I'm going to wear a lot. But then like these statement pieces I like to rent. And yeah, it's quite expensive. But I'm just this lazy person that doesn't go back to the library often enough to to also profit from the economic benefits of renting. But I feel like that's a great opportunity to still look fashionable and sustainable.
Yeah, no, I think that's another great example. Like besides the Project Cece and the secondhand shops, of how you could do that. Now this is all amazing. Could you you said you had a little workshop prepared. Could you give us a little bit insight? Like what do you want to do with us?
So we did this workshop a lot of times. And what we do is we just go through the care labels in your clothes because it always mentions a few things, and we wanted to dive a bit into what are the things that your care label says.
Okay, so if I got it correctly, okay, everybody needs a t-shirt or a trouser, and actually, I don't know, maybe Jivan, Laura, and Daniel, if you're I don't know, doing something right now, would you mind switching on your video? Then we can. Amazing. Okay. Oh, nice. Okay, that's great. See some faces. Yeah. So what? Melissa, I just hand over to you. You'll lead through it.
Yes. So I also have slides prepared. I'm going to share my screen. First check. Yep. All right. You can now see the screen, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Nice. Okay, so the workshop is super practical. I'm going to walk you through the things that are mentioned on the care label instructions and how that's related to sustainability. So first of all, why it matters. You already mentioned a few of the things that are stated here. But yeah, like you said, the fashion industry has a huge impact both on the environment, but also on people. And I was really shocked when I found out about that. And I was shocked when I saw like the facts behind it. So we gathered a few facts that really, that we were really shocked about. For example, it costs 2,700 liters of water to make a simple t-shirt. It takes 16% of all insecticides are used for growing cotton, and 10% of the clothing we buy ends up in trash without being worn. A piece of clothing is on average only worn 10 times before it's thrown away. And then everybody says like, no, that's not me. I'm super sustainable. I wear my clothes a lot. But we all have like these pieces of clothing that we didn't really thought through, that they were in the stores and you looked at them and you were like, oh, wow, this is really looking great. And I'm sure I'm going to wear it a lot. And then you don't. So on average, we only wear our pieces of clothing 10 times. So that's really short. 1/3 of the environmental impact of clothing comes from washing and caring for them. So that's with ironing, washing, drying. And like you said, 99% of all clothing is not produced under fair working conditions. So you can say almost all clothing isn't. And 0.6% of the price of a piece of clothing ends up with the person who manufactured it. So imagine the prices at Primark, for example. It's like so low already, and 0.6% of that price goes to the worker. So it's really hard to imagine how someone can create a livelihood based on that. So there's a few aspects of sustainability that you can pay attention to. What I found really hard when I started my journey was that sustainability was such a broad topic. So when I wanted to buy some piece of clothing, I found it really hard to decide like what aspect of sustainability do I find important. And when we did research for Project Cece on sustainable brands, we kind of separated them on different aspects of sustainability, and we divided into 5 aspects, which are eco-friendly. So when they use eco-friendly materials, so recycled cotton or like recycled polyester. There's vegan. A lot of people shifted to the to veganism to have a more positive impact on the environment, and they also like to do that in clothing. There's locally produced, because most of the clothing is produced not close to where it's actually being consumed. So it saves a lot of transportation if it's produced locally. There's also brands who give back, so they give to charities in the countries where they produce. So for example, you have brands who give back by providing microfinancing, so they can, so their workers can actually support their children through school or create a savings account. And then there's fair trade, which I find the most important, which guarantees that people are not exploited and they are actually able to create a livelihood from the jobs they are doing. So the first question I have, I have 2 white blouses, and one of them is sustainable and the other one is not. Who would say the first one is sustainable? Also looking at the prices. I think raise your hands if you're going for the first. I see 1. Okay, 1. We'll keep it we keep it a mystery until later. So if we look at the care labels, it's actually quite hard to see, like if you look at a piece of clothing, it's quite hard to see whether it's sustainable or not. So then you can look at the care label, because that actually tells you more about the piece of clothing. For example, it tells you about the country of production. So what you often see is that you have like most of the clothing is produced in Asia. China is really popular. Bangladesh is really popular. But then, yeah, after the scandals happened in Bangladesh, you saw that a lot of brands shifted away from Asia to Africa because Bangladesh started increasing their wages. And then, yeah, what happened was that brands were like, okay, yeah, let's go to Africa because it's lower, it's less on the radar of environmental activists, but also of fair trade activists. But also in Europe and the UK, we have production, and we also have scandals here. For example, the Leicester, I can't pronounce the words, but Leicester scandal, where people weren't paid during COVID. We have in Turkey, we saw that refugees were working for a really low wage because they were under the radar. And in the United States, you kind of see the similar things. And you also have the materials. And materials are divided in natural versus synthetic. And on the natural side, people think like, okay, it's natural, so it's probably sustainable. But that's often not the case. For example, if you look at cotton uses a lot of water. But then you also see, if you compare like cotton versus like normal cotton versus bio cotton uses less pesticides, so that's a good thing. But because of that, you also need more water or more of the cotton to make the same kind of t-shirt. So if you add it up, sometimes bio cotton isn't always better than normal cotton. So in this case, it's really good to look at the certifications for this. Also for bamboo, you have like it's really praised as this natural good because it uses a lot less water compared to cotton. But then like to make bamboo, this soft fiber, you need a lot of chemicals, and often this is not used in a closed loop system. So a lot of those chemicals are wasted, and a lot more chemicals are needed to create a bamboo shirt, making it not that environmental friendly at all. Then also the synthetic fibers, that's like a huge thing as well, because yeah, it is, most of them are made from fossil fuels. So that's already not that sustainable, but then to create yeah, this fabric out of oil, that's quite yeah, labor or chemical intensive. So we have this whole yeah, this whole overview of which materials are like how they are performing, but it's quite, yeah, I find it quite boring to go over it per piece, but I can send it later, of course, if you want. And then also your care label shows the care instructions, and like we said, like 1/3 of the environmental impact of your clothing is happening after you bought it. So that is because of the washing temperature, but also because of ironing. So for example, you have the linen shirts, which are really praised as being super sustainable because it's not really harsh on the environment to create, but then it really crisps a lot. So when you want to wear linen, you actually have to iron it. And that's, if you add that on, it's really adding to the impact of the piece of clothing. Also on the polyester part, like it's already not sustainable to be made, but then also you have the like the recycled polyester, which is a bit better. But then if you wash it, it sheds microplastics. And the older a piece gets, so for example, a lot of secondhand clothing uses polyester, but then the older a piece gets, the more microplastics it sheds. So it's getting worse, like along the lifeline of the product. So yeah, coming back to this again, zooming on these two pieces of clothing. So the left one, this is what it says. So it says 70% or 79% is cotton, 3% spandex, and it's made in Hong Kong. So a lot of people say like, okay, Hong Kong, it's like the super yeah, modernized country, so probably it's made in quite an okay way. But then you also have to keep in mind that what a lot of companies do is they have like this less stitch idea. So what they do is they only do like one button, they stitch on the last button in a specific country, because then they are still allowed to say that the product is made there, and then get put it on the care instruction, and people are like, oh, nice, it's made in Hong Kong, or it's made in Italy, so then it must be good. So that's not what's actually behind the label. So this is the one on the left, and this is the one on the right. It's from Lovejoy. It's made in Germany by 100% cotton and biological. So, and also it's being watched at 30 degrees, so that's quite low. And this is another example of like sustainable and versus non-sustainable ones. So the one on the left says it's 100% viscose. It's made, you have to wash it on 60 degrees. It's made in China. It doesn't say anything more. So it doesn't say anything about good fair production or anything. So that's probably not that good of a thing. On the other hand, we have the shorts. It's made from 100% lyocell, made in Turkey. And you also see like the specific, the attachment that Armed Angels put to it. So they say, we believe in visionaries, we believe in you, we believe in us. Together we will fight to become the fairest fashion label in the world. Let's make fast fashion a thing of the past. So probably if you see this, it's like, well, okay, they're actively doing something to make the fashion industry a better place. So you see a lot of, this is something that's really, noticeable for fair fashion labels, is that they are super proud about how they produce. So they give you a lot of information, sometimes more than you actually want, but that's a really good way to see what where your clothing is made and how it's made, and to make the decision. But I'm really curious for your labels, like what does it say?
So mine's made in China. This Uniqlo, made in China, 100% cotton in the body, and then 86% cotton, like on the boundary, but with 14% polyester, which I assume is to make it springy. And then it's got no nothing, no kind of label came with it saying that it was sustainable or anything like that.
Oh shit.
So this is a bad one.
But yeah, where did you bought it?
Uniqlo.
Oh, Uniqlo. Yeah, I do like them in the sense that what they do is they have like quite seasonless collections. So what I do see is that people who buy at Uniqlo, they do wear their products a lot. So that's.
So I have another one. I have one that is actually quite nice because it says save energy, wash at 30 degrees Celsius. So that's
positive.
And it says do not tumble dry, so you save energy there too, I guess. It's made in Turkey and it's made from 74% polyester and 25% cotton algodon. I don't know what that is. I can't really read it well. It's called cotton algodon or algoon or something like that.
I never heard of that.
Yeah, I don't know. It's like algoon. I'm gonna have to Google this. But I bought this like I think 10 years ago, and I still wear it, and it's been doing fine. But it doesn't say much otherwise. But I like the fact that at least for the washing, they were like save energy, so they're a bit cotton.
Yeah, that's a good thing. And also, if you bought it like 10 years ago and you can still wear it, that's quite positive. Because this is also something that a lot of people do, they're like, okay, I'm going to be sustainable from now on. And then they're going to throw away all the fast fashion pieces they have and replace them with sustainable ones. And of course, that's like, it's good to support sustainable brands, but it's not that environmental friendly to just throw away your clothes that are still perfectly fine.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Cool. I have a similar one. That's what I'm wearing actually. And that's like 9 or 10 years old. It says 65% cotton, 35% polyester, made in Portugal though.
Oh, that's
and washable at 40 degrees.
Nice. I think that's a good one. Do you know the brand?
Björkman. I found it sometimes somewhere in Germany. So
Nice.
Okay, well, I brought my onesie skiing outfit, which is kind of interesting because it's from the outside it's made from 100% polyamide, and from the inside it's made from 100% polyester. However, I must admit, when my brother bought it, so that's the only good thing. I'm sharing it with my brother.
That's nice.
We didn't buy two. However, it was made in China. And yeah, I'm pretty sure it was probably not environmentally friendly produced, which is sad.
Yeah, although China is like, they are doing better than before. Like they are taking steps towards sustainability. Although, yeah, it's really hard to check on them. For example, you have this new scandal from like the cotton industry, which is like, what I personally really like about it is that, so this whole scandal was about cotton being produced under forced labor by the Uyghur minorities that are detained and then sent to the cotton fields to cut the cotton or make like the material of it. So what I personally was really interested about was that like after some really international pressure on it, now the United States decided to boycott all cotton from the Uyghur province. And 5 years ago, you couldn't imagine this happening, like that there were actually sanctions on, followed on reports like this. So I think this is quite an interesting development in the fashion industry.
Absolutely agree. Daniel and Jiwan, you said your t-shirt is not showing anything. Now actually I think is the workshop continuing, or is did I get it correctly that we're okay, sorry I didn't want to start. Go on.
I think like the other part is just like the practical tips, like what can you do, because like concluding, it is really hard to define whether a product is sustainable based on its care label, especially because of like the materials. Sometimes like it also really depends on what aspect of sustainability you want to support. What you see a lot is, for example, people who are vegan, that they start buying vegan alternatives for leather, which is good for animal welfare, but then most of those alternatives are made from plastics, so it's not that sustainable, and it's also not that durable. So it's really about like what aspect of sustainability is important to you, and what do you want to contribute to. So when in doubt, what we really liked was Remake World and Good on You. They both do checks on actually a lot of brands, whether they produce sustainable and like why they are producing sustainable. And then of course we created the website to also make it really easy to find only those sustainable brands that support the values of sustainability that you find important. So on our website you can filter on those aspects and see what all those brands have to offer.
Nice. Well, thank you so much thank you so much for this amazing workshop. I'll be honest, I will definitely look much more into the little shields in whatever I'm buying. Now, before we open up the Q&A session where everybody can ask their questions and just shout them out, like Dania, for example, I would like actually to start the Q&A with one topic that really concerned me when I decided which skiing onesie to get. The problem is that with, like, I don't know, with a dress or with trousers, I think it's rather simple to shop sustainable. I mean, as you with Project Cece did a huge step towards making it much easier. Now, however, if we go into more specialized clothings, as for example here, like a skiing rack, how can I be more sustainable in that fashion sense?
So you mean like clothing that you don't wear that often, or like exactly,
like a suit, like a special dress, which you may only wear once or twice. I don't know.
Yeah. So for me, what I really liked about as a solution for that was renting, especially for the dresses part. Like if you go to specific events and you want to look really cool, like you always have those show ponies, like these dresses that are really cool, but you don't want to be the girl with the polka dots or the girl in the black dress or something. Like you don't want to wear it that often. So for me, renting really was the solution there, that you can just rent something, pay for it for the use you're getting, and then just send it back.
Nice, definitely something we could introduce for the Cambridge Mayballs. We'll see. We'll see. All right. So with that being said, I would love to open up the forum for you guys. If you have any questions, just shout them out. Okay, Eleanor, go ahead.
So thank you so much, both Julius and Melissa. It was really, really amazing, really cool. My first question would be, how do you want people to use Project Cece? So like, do you imagine people going on the website just before shopping? Or do you imagine them doing research from home before doing online shopping? How did you have it in mind, basically, like the use of it?
So we really created it out of our own need. And we noticed that we really like the convenience of online shopping because you are allowed to do more research. So you can really dive deep into a piece and see like, okay, this is what it looks like. But I also really found it important to see like the materials and like where it was made and do some more research on that. So instead of going through all those different sources, we gathered all the information on Project Cece. So I think that is the solution we foresee. So to make the online research easier.
But is there a way that you could, for instance, talk to a brand and say, like, for instance, instead of people finding something nice, then going back to your website, then going back to the other website to, you know, double check, could there be a way for you to, you know, be directly with those brands and, you know, like the brands, when you go on their website, suddenly they're like, oh, we had a score of this much on this website that rated us according to sustainability factors. Are you trying to implement this? Do you see a future in that regard or not?
Not really, because you have like, you have, for example, the good on use who are already doing the ratings. So like we don't try to be another rating system. Like we really try to tell the story in a short and concise way. In that sense, like gather the information, but not give a rating. Also because we found it, like we tried the rating before we went live. But then we found it super hard to create the skill because, like also you see on Good and You, like it's really hard to decide where a brand that is actually doing a lot, but not really, can have any certificates, for example, where you would put them on the scale.
Okay.
So we find it quite hard to do the scaling, and we also didn't want to do the competition parts because, like, sustainability for everyone, it's it has different aspects, and like we want to tell you what a brand does regarding to that aspect, but we don't want to do like a rating on how they are doing. We do rate the certificates, however.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Yeah,
I've got one.
Yeah, Laura.
You mentioned that library where you can rent clothes, basically. I'm pretty sure I've read about a similar thing in some Scandinavian country, but I'm not sure if that survived or not. Are you aware of any other organizations like that, maybe even in the UK?
You have Rent a Runway, and you have that's more like swapping. Which is also like a sustainable alternative, but then you have to give something away as well. But that's like you have like Swash UK, which is good for that sense as well.
Okay,
but
cool.
It's not
Thanks.
necessarily renting.
Cool. And then another question, more of like a personal opinion, I guess. How do you feel about brands like People Tree or Finisterre promoting sales as a sustainable brand. Does that make sense to you?
It actually does. Like when I started diving into sustainability, I was on a student budget, so I didn't have a lot of money to spend. And for me, the sales were really the moment where I was like, okay, I can actually like, if it really sucks, then I wouldn't feel too bad about it. So for me, it really encouraged me to try out those sustainable brands because they were closer to the amount of money I was spending on clothes. So yeah, like I do feel it promotes sustainable consumption, but on the other hand, I'm not really pro about the last item and like the urgency part. I think it's still really important to think before you buy.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thanks.
Welcome.
Thanks so much for that presentation, Melissa. Super interesting, and to Julius as well for hosting. I was really interested to hear you talk about like the more social side of things. So particularly, you know, as like that was the thing that influenced you, like social pressure to shop more sustainably. What kind of social changes do you expect to see in the next few years in how people shop, like in terms of volume and in terms of where? And where do you think those changes are most likely to come from?
Well, what I see happening now a lot is that sustainability is really, secondhand clothing is really like going off the ground. And on the one hand, I really like that because it's like more environmental friendly than the products already made. But on the other hand, it's like, I find it really important that people are able to still, create a livelihood in the fashion industry in the countries where they now produce fast fashion. So what I would like to see is that the sustainable brands become bigger, so they can create fair alternatives to the jobs that are created by the fast fashion industry. And then based on that, we can have a more ethical fashion industry.
How about on the consumer side of things? So like what's going to influence people to step away from fast fashion?
Yeah, that's really hard because it really depends on the bubble you're in. So for example, in my bubble, people are super into sustainability. And if you go to the H&M and you buy something new, people are shaming you, which isn't a good thing as well. Like you don't want to shame people for buying something. But I think it's more about showing the alternatives, showing how nice sustainable fashion can be. So that's what we're trying to do with this Project Cece, like make it super easy to find comparable sustainable fashion. So even if you want to look fashionable, that you can also do it sustainably. So more on the positive side versus the shaming and negative side.
Nice. Any other questions? Because if not, I still have a question. Now, if we look at the Project Cece, I mean, you collected this amazing. Can you say once more how many articles can you shop at Cece?
33,000.
33,000. Okay, I mean, this is amazing. This is a huge online shop. Could you give us maybe a little more insight into how do you want to develop Project Cece? Where do you want to go to? What are the next steps?
So right now we are looking to create this international platform. So what we did is we started in the Netherlands and we gathered the information of we almost gathered most sustainable web shops there. Then we went to Germany and then to the UK. But for each country we created a different platform, which on the one hand is nice, but on the other hand is like twice the work. And a lot of the web shops in the Netherlands, they also ship to the UK or they also ship to Germany. So this is something we're working on to create this international platform, gathering most of the sustainable web shops online and make it easy for you as a consumer to say like, okay, now I'm in Germany, I want to see the web shops that deliver here. But if you were in another country, you can just switch on a different country filter. So then based on that, we want to see where it's actually where people are using our product more, and then based on that go deeper into those markets. And collaborate more with local organizations, because this is what we do in the Netherlands a lot. We are not only like saying like, okay, we have this alternative for fast fashion, but we're also trying to educate more about the fashion industry in general. And we do this by collaborating with local organizations. And I think that's a really important part about like buying less, and when you buy sustainable.
Actually, you just said you're going to the UK and to Germany. What actually about you, because you mentioned that earlier, that a lot of secondhand clothes are shipped from the United States to Germany. It seems like that's at least what I remember when I was in the United States. Like a lot of my friends, they brought 2 suitcases and one of them was empty. And when they flew back to Germany, both suitcases were full.
Yeah.
Now, what about, I mean, if we're talking in terms of sustainability, I mean, the impact, of course, will be much higher if going into a market like that. What do you think about the United States market? What about them?
Well, we've actually been in talks with people who like wanted to collaborate, like they would do the marketing, and we would provide the platform. But like the United States it is such a big market, and it's quite hard to actually understand the consumer there, especially because we don't think similarly. So we feel like we first want to test everything in Europe and then maybe go to the United States. And also India is quite a really interesting country regarding sustainability.
In which sense is India interesting?
They're super, you have a lot of local organizations who are really into empowering people to learn more about sustainability, and also to provide like alternatives to the bigger brands.
Okay, well, we press all our thumbs that it works all well, and that you can develop into all of these countries and grow as a project. And we thank you so much for being here with us tonight. We had some amazing insights, really interesting. Me in particular, I will definitely look out for much more for what is standing on my clothes, and
Nice.
be more sustainable, or borrow my next suit. But we'll see about that. I don't know.
I think Stefan wants to ask a question.
Yeah, do it.
I was just interested to know, like, what sort of if governments have been quite supportive of your initiatives, and like when you go into new countries, and what their perceptions were on sustainability, and what you think they could do to help support.
Well, with governments, like what we see with local governments a lot is that they are really trying to do something with sustainability, but they don't know how to do it. So instead of talking with local organizations, they just come up with something, like they create like this competition instead of supporting us. But we do see, like on a bigger scale, for example, Europe is now looking into new legislation about supply chain, so that brands that want to sell products in Europe, they actually have to thoroughly check their supply chain. And I think that's a really, really big step. And for example, also the thing that's happening in the United States with where they are canceling cotton from the Uyghur region, I think that's really, like a step forward compared to how it was.
Does that answer your question, Jivan?
Yeah, cool.
Okay. Sorry, I should have asked. Any other questions? All right, okay. I don't know. Well, if not, I'm sure you can write Melissa, drop a mail, or apply for an internship. Or are you actually searching for people, or are you fully booked?
No, we're fully booked. Like right now, we're in the middle of a new fundraising round, but then afterwards we can hire again. So that's
amazing. Okay. Okay. We're as I said, we're pressing all our thumbs that everything works out just well, and we love your project. Thank you so much for being here with us tonight, and for sharing your insights. It's been really interesting. Thank you very much for being here, and wishing you a good weekend, actually.
Thank you too. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Thanks so much.